On November 26, 1922, Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon stood in front of the tomb of 18th dynasty king of ancient Egypt with the name of Tutankhamen. They could see multiple attempts of forced entry on the wall of the tomb. Carter nervously put a hole on the left side of the doorway and lit a candle and peeked inside. He could not believe what he was seeing, so his buddy asked him, "What do you see?" He responded, "Wonderful things." As soon as they entered the tomb, they encountered with glint of gold everywhere. They could see different types of gold statues laying around on the floor. These were basically the belongings of the last king of ancient Egypt, Tutankhamen. Now there was another doorway inside the tomb which led to the burial chamber of the king, which was sealed and guarded by two large statues. They could see again there was a hole in the doorway which showed there was a forced entry. So they crawled through the hole and again saw the room completely filled up with golden shrines and statues. So after being amazed by what they were seeing, they decided to exit the tomb and seal the door for now. The burial chamber was officially opened on February 17, 1923, 4 months after Carter and his friend were at the tomb. There was a massive coverage from the news in that time. Carter and Carnarvon wanted to make some money out of this discovery. So, they decided to make it exclusive to the New York Times. Different scientists and archaeologists started going there to study this tomb, but only a certain few of these people were allowed to visit. After some time, Carter and Carnarvon decided to close the tomb for a few days so everybody could take a break. So Carnarvon used this opportunity to go to a trip with his daughter. In this trip, he was bitten by a mosquito. Not long after he came back, one day when he was shaving, he accidentally slit the scab of the mosquito bite. Soon after this happens, the wound gets infectious and he starts to feel unwell. So as his condition worsened, he went for medical attention, but it was too late. The doctors told him his blood was poisoned, and right after that, pneumonia followed. Pneumonia is an infection of the lungs that can be caused by different viruses, bacteria, and fungi. When you have pneumonia, the tiny air sacs in your lungs become inflamed and can be filled with fluid or even pus. Carnarvon died in April 5, 1923, 5 months after he entered the tomb. The word of his death traveled fast and everyone was curious how this happened. Lots of people believed opening the tomb is going to put a curse on the people who enter it. Already before Carnarvon's death, novelist Marie Corelli had warned against tampering with the unknown, and here is a quote from her. "I cannot but think that some risks are run by breaking into the last rest of a king of Egypt whose tomb is specifically and solemnly guarded." On April 5, 1923, at the exact moment of Carnarvon's death, Cairo, the city that the tomb was found in, went into darkness. All the powers went off suddenly. No explanation could be found for this unexpected power failure. Although anybody who has visited the Egyptian capital will confirm that power cuts are by no means rare events. Far more intriguing is the story of Carnarvon's three-legged dog, Susie. Susie had been left behind in England, but at the exact moment of her master's death, the dog sat up and howled. One violent death related to Tutankhamen was that of a Professor Evelyn White, a classicist and archaeologist at Leeds University. He committed suicide in a taxi in 1924, few months after he visited the tomb. He left a suicide note, and I quote, "I know there is a curse on me." Another victim related to this tomb was Richard Bethel, an assistant to Howard Carter, who died of apparently natural causes at the Bath Club in 1929. He visited the tomb not long before his death. After hearing the sad news of Richard's death, Richard's father, who also was an Egyptologist and visited the tomb, threw himself out of a window of a building and died. Now, on the way to the cemetery to bury Richard's father, the vehicle that they were carrying the coffin with knocked down and killed an 8-year-old boy. There was a total of 6 deaths out of 23 people who visited this tomb who died mysteriously, which to this day there is no solid answer for. On August 2016, in north of London, 26-year-old Kennedy Iffy began acting strange and aggressive. He claimed he had a pain in his throat and problem sleeping. He started biting his father and told everybody he's gonna cut off his own penis. He said he felt there was a snake inside him. The Iffy family was very religious, so at first, instead of getting medical attention, they talked to a priest. The priest as well as the family believed Kennedy was possessed by a demon. The family then decided to cure Kennedy through restraint and prayer over the next few days. They used cable ties, rope and handcuffs to restrain Kennedy at home and took away all the knives in the house. The father made the 4 other sons to take shifts and watch their brother. After 3 days that Kennedy was tied to a bed, he started to complain to his brother that he is unwell and dehydrated. So the brother calls 911 for help, and a little bit after the help shows up, but it's too late and Kennedy dies. There was more than 60 injuries caused mostly by bites on Kennedy's body when they found him. His father was found to also have some bite injuries on the shoulder, while 4 other brothers had minor injuries. The family got accused of manslaughter and allowing the death of a vulnerable adult. However, they were found not guilty after investigations. Kennedy's brother said his brother's actions were shocking to hear, but he did not consider calling professional help because it was a domestic issue. He believed something took over Kennedy that was not natural. He said there was another personality coming through his brother in the days leading up to his death. Whatever it was, the family believed it wanted to kill him. The father told officers Kennedy was hearing voices and had mentioned the joke he made about the number 666 when he was a teenager, but he was saying it in a regretful way. To this day, Kennedy's death remains unsolved. This incident was covered by BBC as well if you want to check it out. In 1863, most of the land, which is now called Girified Park, was owned by a wealthy man named Don Antonio Feliz. This land was 8,000 acres big. Antonio Feliz never got married and started to live there with his niece and a maid. Antonio got a smallpox the same year he got the land. He sent out his niece away so she doesn't get the deadly disease. After some time, Antonio's neighbor visited him with a lawyer and forced him to sell the land. Antonio didn't feel he had a choice in the matter, so he sold the land to his neighbor. So Antonio got out of the land with not much from selling it and some furniture. Antonio's niece, who was blind, got really bitter and put a curse on the land. The original curse was in Spanish, but here is a translated English version of it, and I quote, "Your falsity shall be your ruin. The substance of the Feliz family shall be your curse. The lawyer that assisted you in your infamy and the judge shall fall beneath the same curse. The one shall die an untimely death, the other in blood and violence. You, Senior, shall know misery in your age, and although you die rich, your substance shall go to vile persons. A blight shall fall upon the face of this terrestrial paradise. The cattle shall no longer fatten, but sicken on its pastures. The fields shall no longer respond to the toil of the tiller. The grand oaks shall wither and die. The wrath of heaven and the vengeance of hell shall fall upon this place." The neighbor who bought the land outlasted his family, watching all of them die from disease or misfortune. The neighbor's mother, who became a widow, remarried only to have her new husband try to divorce her and take all their belongings. The lawyer who helped him to buy the land took rest of his wealth, but interestingly, after some time, the lawyer was killed in a bar fight. The next owner was a man named Lucky Baldwin. He tried to run a dairy business on the land. But when he started the business, his crops kept getting ruined by huge rainstorms and his cattle were dying from different diseases. As this condition continued, he had no choice but to sell the land. He got some loans from mortgage companies to buy the land. And since his business wasn't working to pay the mortgage, he sold the land and ran away. The next owner was named Griffith J. Griffith. Griffith was a Welshman who moved to California during the gold rush and made a killing in mine speculation. He donated the park to Los Angeles as an unconditional Christmas gift. A few years after this unexpected generosity, Griffith was convicted of trying to kill his wife and spent a couple of years in prison. Griffith and most of his immediate family now lie 6 feet under the land, which is now called Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Also, the legend of the curse gave rise to ghost stories in the park which bears his name. The land is in the Hollywood Hills, which is now used as municipal golf course and the LA Zoo. The curse seemed to cool off once the city of Los Angeles took possession of the land. Although there are still ghost stories heard from the new park that was built in the land, which was named after Griffith. The park is closed at night, so if the ghosts who stalk and ride the old trails of Girified Park only put in appearances after sunset, they should be left in relative peace until the land inevitably changes hands again.